You know, my town is somewhere probably around 15,000 people.
Yeah.
And, my farm, before we sold off a bunch of the property, we had a little over 30 acres. So
Yeah.
we're in a nice spot. We've got, used to be a reservoir, but the town bought it. So now it's a recreation area right across the street. So nobody can build. And that's about, I think, 65, 70 acres. So it's a nice little spot.
Good chunk of land.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a nice spot.
I was at an alumni thing last night for University of Calgary, and
Yeah.
the Flames GM spoke at it, and I was with them for 8 years, so I saw a lot of guys I hadn't seen for 20, 30 years. It was good.
Isn't one of the, and maybe it's the other sports, but I can't really speak to them, but it just really feels like when you get back together, be they, players that you coached or maybe guys that you played with, it doesn't matter how much time has passed in between, you just pick it right back up.
Yeah, that you remember the relationship you had when you knew them, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where you
Exactly.
start from.
Yeah. So that's kind of fun. We had our a few weeks back we had the alumni weekend and there was an alumni game and then a bunch of the guys came, down to the local bar and grill there afterwards for festivities and it was nice. I caught up with probably about 15, 18 guys and going back as far as at this point going back as far as like almost 10 years. So it's pretty
Yeah,
much fun.
yeah, that always is.
And then I'm back broadcasting now. I'm doing that again. So I got that part of my life going on. So that's fun.
Yeah. Well, I got Cassie Campbell helping me coach, so she goes to ESPN to do some games still.
Yeah,
She's
that's
not
pretty
doing
cool.
the other stuff.
Yeah, I think it's great that there's so many people from different venues that at one time would never have an opportunity to take part. That you know you realize that you can learn from everyone.
Yeah.
Peter, what's your area? I know you're working with minor hockey teams in your area, but you're broadcasting college games. But in terms of your circle of influence and the area of hockey, can you describe where you live and the different levels of play that go on there?
Yeah, well, where
Exposure.
where I am, within 45 minutes to an hour, you can get to anywhere from probably 10 or 20 different town rec youth organizations to AAA to about a dozen prep schools. And then right in state, we have Yale University, which is, East AC Division One. We have Sacred Heart University, which is Atlantic Hockey Division One. We have Quinnipiac University, that's ECAC Division One. Then we have NESCAC schools, those high-end academic Division Three schools. We have Trinity, Wesleyan, and Conn College. So, and then University of Connecticut, which is in Hockey East. So there's 7 colleges that I can get to within an hour. So it's pretty diverse what is out there for hockey. Plus, the Hartford Wolfpack over in Hartford, which is 35 minutes away, up to Springfield in 45 minutes.
How far are you from professional hockey geographically?
Well, Hartford, like if you count the American Hockey League, I'm 35 minutes away.
Yeah.
And then there's some minor league. There's a Federal League, which is more of a minor league for minor pro league, and that's again about 30 minutes away.
How big an influence does professional hockey have in your area in terms of development and perspective?
Well, one of the things the New York Rangers do a really good job. And I'm guessing they do it in New York too, but I'm only really familiar right now with what they do in Connecticut. They have a learn to play program where they furnish the helmet, skates, elbow pads, and I think maybe gloves for the kids so they can all just try hockey, and it's called like a junior Rangers program, and they go to rinks all over the state. So as far as that goes, a hands-on program, they have that going, and then
Doesn't
people,
Mike Benelli do a lot with that?
what's that?
Mike Benelli, doesn't he work with the Rangers a lot?
That's our buddy Bones. Yeah, Mike does a ton of that. Oh, and I forgot too, Bridgeport. We have the Bridgeport
Sure.
Islanders team over there too. So we've got 2 American League teams in the state, 7 Division I colleges, and then we're a couple hours from New York and Boston.
Well, Tom, I'm sorry I couldn't make that banquet last night. I figured because 2 of our U18 teams, AA, were playing each other, I wanted to see how they competed, and the hockey
Well,
was.
did my girls play for them? Because I got calls and they said they were practicing.
What's that, Tom?
3 of my defensemen, they got calls to go practice with them. So maybe they played.
I think she played in the game. Do you know which team she played for?
Well, Austin called about one of the forwards too. Well, 3 of my defensemen, 2 of my forwards.
Yeah.
I think Jordan called about Ashley, and
Yeah,
Austin wanted
Jardine,
Kinsley and
Jardine practiced with him.
yeah.
He said she really practiced well.
Oh, this is a 5'10" girl who's probably the fastest skater in our league, or among the first, top 5.
Yeah.
She's a pretty good player.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Peter, last night's game, I'm working with U13, so I've left the pros and the national team, and I'm out down here watching these kids. Tom coaches in the league, and I I got a question, Tom. Is the game dangerous? The girls' minor hockey game last night, there was a lot of penalties, hits from behind. There's scrums in front of the net with some penalties being taken. And boy, I came away from that more concerned about safety and respect.
Well, they don't teach defensive technique individual very good. Like, we've got the least penalties in the league.
Yeah.
But we work on, the stick on the puck and angling and defensive skating and all this. Because when you saw our game against the Red the other day, like, Whitworth got hit from behind into the boards.
Yeah.
Not even a 2-minute on. That should have been a game ejection.
Yeah.
And we were getting tackled and tripped all over the place.
Yeah, that's a good, the teaching of how to check, it's not there. So they're hitting, cross-checking from behind, knocking people down. There was a 4-minute hit to the head penalty, and there was.
Well, first of all, they all have to keep their stick on the ice, right?
Yeah.
Your stick is never off the ice when you're checking.
Yeah.
And if they start there, that eliminates a lot of crap.
Yeah. What about in front of the net? I've noticed at U13, they're cross-checking each other and staring each other down. They're 11 and 12-year-old girls, and I'm thinking, get the heck out of there. To me, that's ugly. I don't see that happening much in the NHL game.
No, but the same thing. You keep your stick on the ice and have your stick on the, you box out, and the only time it needs to be physical is when the puck's on the way, right?
Yeah.
Don't have to be wrestling somebody in front. And anyway, they shouldn't be standing in front of the net anyway. They should be there, as an outlet for the pass after the forecheck.
Tom, what you're talking about, right, is
Yeah.
harder to do, right, than just essentially bullying someone away from the front of the net.
Oh yeah, it's way harder to do. Like,
Right.
we had one of our D was doing that stuff at the early, and I had to bench her. She took 10 minutes in 2 games, penalties, at our starting tournament.
Yeah, I think that's some of the reason why they do it is because it's just easier to do the physical piece of it, unfortunately, and not learn it the right way, the correct way that it's more productive.
Yeah, I mean, it's just doesn't make any sense most of the time.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, you grew up in an era, I think Peter and I both did too, where we're taught how to teach those tactical skills. Angling, stick on puck, going through the hands and the hips. But years ago, Peter, in Canada, and I don't know if it ever happened in the States, back in the 1990s, there was a serious rise in the insurance rates because of hitting from behind. And they put stop crest and respect crest on the back of minor hockey jerseys. Did that happen down south, Peter?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it affected any kind of insurance rates, but they put actually a miniature stop sign right up on the back between the up above between the shoulder blades.
Yeah.
Most of the jerseys, and then the other thing they did was, which it's since disappeared. They put that orange line that was maybe about 3 feet wide away from the boards, but all the way around the boards.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to give you a visual cue that when you saw an opponent in that orange area, to be careful and to not hit from behind, that you're approaching a dangerous place. Now, I don't see that anymore. That kind of went away. I'm not sure why. Maybe people just felt it wasn't doing anything, or I'm not sure why it went away, but they did do those two things like that you're talking about in order to address that very situation.
Peter, we had Dr. Joan Vickers, who initiated that research here in Calgary. It was visual awareness of the danger zone. And they did a lot of research on it. And apparently it was the Eastern United States that initially bought into the concept. But you say there's none of the rinks you see now have that 3-foot reminder barrier around the perimeter of the rink?
Not that I've seen, but again, they're New England's still a pretty big area. It could still be in some rinks. I just haven't seen it in any of the rinks that I've been at.
Well, Tom, I must be getting old, but I'm just as worried as ever about hitting from behind in the girls' game as I was in the boys' game back in the day.
Oh, it's a dangerous thing. The boards are unforgiving. I mean, Kat got her knee torn up hitting the boards. It wasn't a hit from behind, but you hit those boards, boy, they're unforgiving. Got to be, careful around there.
Well,
there's no reason they shouldn't be teaching proper angling techniques.
I sent out.
It all depends on the coach. A lot of people do. It's not like a club where you got it in your club and they learn everything at certain levels because they got a curriculum. Everybody kind of does their own thing.
Well, I think the other part of it too, like I see it around here, is again that really touches a little bit on culture too in some ways. That if you accept that behavior as a coach, then your team's going to keep doing it, right? I mean, if you have your own little after a game, your own punitive type of thing, like maybe you're not in the lineup for the next game, or maybe you don't play the first period if it's something that's habitual for you, because we want you to learn, sending a message to the rest of the team that, we don't want to do this because I want to play 3 periods. I don't want to play 2 or none.
Yeah. Well, that's always the only weapon a coach has, is ice time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how much that's used. I know when I coached university, I had, if you got a misconduct penalty, because usually you get a misconduct penalty right from mouthing off to the official.
Yeah.
And it was hard to do, but if you got a misconduct penalty, I just gassed you for the rest of the game. You sat there for 10 minutes, and then when you were done, you just sat on the bench and you didn't play again. And it was hard to do because, as you know, of course, it's always seems a way that sometimes it's your players that can score goals or the guys that are doing some of that stuff, just kind of getting over the edge. But I'll tell you what, it changed it in short order for those individuals and the whole rest of the team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's always, you got to keep your thumb on top of things or they go south on you.
Yeah, it's like it's like putting a cat in a room with a mouse. Tell the cat don't eat the mouse, and you shut the door, and you come back
Yeah.
and you're surprised that the cat had eaten the mouse. Right? Like you said, you got to be on it. You got to pay attention, know what's going on.
Yeah. No. Yeah, the board stuff is, and people you also have to teach them to get their hands up if they feel something to protect themselves so they don't. And another thing I tell the girls, I said, like in football, you hit with your hand up like that. You
Yeah.
never want to hit with your head straight. You never want to, if you are going the boards, you don't want to hit the very top of your head. Only 5 miles an hour crush your spine.
Yes.
So get your head up, if you can possibly do it. And the other thing that I found you have to teach is these kids think the helmet protects them from concussions, and it does nothing for concussions.
Right.
Cracked skulls and, because it's your brain flipping around. So my grandson was getting in minor concussion plan. The kids are hitting each other with a stick, fooling around and stuff. And I noticed someone's coming for him, and it's obviously going to be a big hit. He never, your top hand up like this, you pick off all that stuff, and your head doesn't get hit.
Right.
And they think the helmet's going to protect them. So you have to, you got to, when things are flying all over, you go like this, and your stick picks off most things. And that's something that kids need to be taught too, because most of the time they didn't protect themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. And it seems like you get, it's easy to get caught up in all the other aspects because you want to work on their skills. You want to work on shooting, passing, scoring. You want to work on your systems, those kinds of things. And you forget those basics that I feel like you have to keep going back to regardless of what they are. And safety actually is one of those basics that you're talking about.
Yeah. And and I think with a face mask and the sticks are very careless too.
Yeah, one is interesting too, you bring that up with that whole thing now with the major junior players being able to come to the NCAA. Now they're talking about some sort of a waiver or just a rule for half shields in the NCAA now.
Yeah, well, all those kids, up to midget, they all wore cages anyway, so it's not that, it's not that big of a deal. They're wearing the half visors, but someone that wore a cage can get back to a cage with no problem whatsoever.
Right, and you could argue too, I suppose, that the cages actually give you a certain feeling of invincibility.
Yeah.
And you're more likely to get a stick up when someone's in a cage. So, I mean, it can work the other way a little bit too.
Yeah, like I'm so old that until midget, we didn't have to wear helmets. And then in the next year is called juvenile. They don't have it anymore because now U18 used to be U17, and then U19 was juvenile. But anyways, in juvenile, helmets were mandated, but the refs in Alberta refused to wear the helmets, so they wouldn't call it. So they weren't really. Some guys wore helmets, some didn't. And then I think Hockey Alberta said, okay, if you don't wear a helmet, you won't be reffing. And of course, everybody wore a helmet. But then when I played after college, when I went to that U.S. league, I didn't wear a helmet there. How smart I am.
Well, it's it's what it was, right?
Yeah.
We all used to put sugar on our cereals every morning for breakfast when we were kids.
Yeah.
Don't do that anymore.
You don't
I just
anymore, Peter?
What's that?
Do you have sugar Have you reduced your sugar intake?
Oh, yes, yeah. Had my physical, everything was in the green, so that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's changed. They even they even changed the name of sugars. You know, the companies used to have things like Sugar Smacks and names like that. And
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
right. And now they're just called Smacks.
Well, the ad for Sugar Pops was, "Oh, the pops are sweeter and the taste is new. They're shot with sugar through and
Yeah.
through."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
So
still
it's
like them.
yeah, they're still good. No good for you, but they're still good.
Everything in moderation.
Well, that's true. That that's true for sure. But even with penalties too, Tom, I've noticed that because I called last weekend, I called 2 games, and the first game, the home team was, I mean, their goalie was lights out, was 94% save average, stole the game, was in the league, was the goalie of the week, that kind of thing. And then second night, they went up 3-0, different goaltender in that, but I don't think that had that much to do with it. They went up 3-0, and then they just started going in the box. And I think they allowed 6 5-on-4s in the other team's favor, and the other team scored on 2 of them to make it 3-2. So now, right, you're gripping your stick a little tight because you had a 3-0 lead. Then it goes to 3-3, and then they lose with about 5 or 6 minutes left in the third period. So just staying out of the box,
Yeah.
in general, and that discipline seems to be harder than it should be.
Well, I always try to sell. We're second in the league in penalty killing, but we have the least amount of penalties. And I tell the players, I said, the best way to kill a penalty is don't get one in the first place.
Yeah, and most teams are better 5-on-5 anyway, right? So let's play
Yeah.
5-on-5, or if we're 5-on-4, that's okay too.
Yeah. But we had 2 strange games last weekend. We got 51 shots. We got to shot this team 51-24, and we scored a late goal to win the game 2-1. And then
Wow.
we play a better team the next day, and I think we got 27 shots or something like that, and they got about 30, and we won 5-1 because the players they were really nice shots. They're putting the puck in the net, but goal scoring is evasive.
Yeah, it's always tough to try to figure that one out, right?
Yeah,
We've been in those games where we outshoot them and we don't win, and other games where we get outshot and we do win. It's
yeah.
no rhyme or reason.
Well, tomorrow we go to Red Deer, and they're leading the league. They beat us. I think it was in overtime, and we really dominated the game, but we couldn't score against them. So we go there to play tomorrow night. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, those are fun games. Like from the coaching aspect, it's always fun to see how your team reacts to those kinds of situations.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll see. How far do you have to travel when you travel?
We try everything farther than about 10 miles, go by bus.
Okay.
There's 2 teams just outside of Calgary that we just drive there. And then like we go to Red Deer, it's 90 miles.
Okay.
We bus there. Then we go 2 weeks from now, or maybe 3, we go to Grand Prairie. It's 8.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
The long bus drive.
And they're the closest? There's nobody else to the left of Grand Prairie or anybody that they could play?
It's kind of out there on its own. So we play in Grand Prairie. And then the next day in the afternoon, we play in Sherwood Park, which is by Edmonton, which is 4 hours away.
Okay.
So it's Grand Prairie's way hell and gone.
Now, are those
It's really interesting. You go over these, I flew there once, the first time I ever went there. And you go over these hills, and it's kind of wild country. And then all of a sudden, there's this giant stretch of farmland, hundreds of miles That's why it's called Grand Prairie, and it's just farmland. That's where it is. There's not many people live in that part of the province, but
Are those teams that you're playing where you gotta travel like that, are they in your league too?
yeah,
Sure.
there's 14 teams in the league,
Okay.
so they're all over the province. They had a tournament 2 weeks ago in Lethbridge that all 14 teams came, and we played three games against northern teams, so we don't have to go there or vice versa.
Yeah.
Because we played the north. There's 2 divisions, 7 teams in each, so we played the North Division once each. But we played this Lloydminster, which is about 5 hours from here.
Oh, yeah.
But we didn't play Grand Prairie, so we got to go up there.
Yeah, I had a boy that played junior there, the Bobcats. I think they were the Lloydminster Bobcats.
Yeah.
Played junior up there. And then he, smart kid, good kid. Then he went to Cornell after that.
Yeah, they've been in the Alberta Junior. That's going to really be interesting what this change does to this BC Junior, because they were breaking all the rules and broke away from Hockey Canada so that they could have imports and all this sort of thing. And now with this, with this change, it's kind of a, whether that league will fold and they just go back to the BC Junior. But they promoted this Junior B League to be a Junior A League now. It was the KIHL, I think, Kootenay International Hockey League. It was a pretty good league, but it
I
wasn't.
think KIJHL.
Yeah, it wasn't quite
Hockey League, yeah.
BC
I had
Junior.
a goalie played for me from there. I had a goalie from there a few
Yeah.
years.
I know when I coached
How
at
your
State,
kids
man, I
have
recruited a few
out
guys
there?
and they're pretty good. Pardon, Wally?
How do the players end up from where you live in Lloydminster? Is there recruiting, or do they research places, or what?
Well, that particular instance was my captain was actually from Calgary.
Okay.
And he had played, I forget the name of it, at an academy. And this goaltender had played at the academy with him. They kept in touch after the academy. He went out to play in that league, and they kept in touch. And when we were recruiting goaltenders, he said, "Hey, I got a friend. You might want to look at his videos and see what you think." And he was really good, and we're happy to have him.
Yeah, players go all over the place. There's a lady who's communicated with me over the years because of my hockey site there. Her son from Australia is playing in, I don't know if it's a BC Junior or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's excuse me, it's really something how they are from all over the place. I'm just looking up this team that they just recently played. And with them, like looking at their roster, I mean, all over the states, but from Florida, Quebec, I can't pronounce it, Czech Republic.
Where's the home team, Peter?
This team is in Westfield, Massachusetts, this particular team. Another Quebec, Oakville, Ontario, Cheshire, Connecticut, St. Lazare, Quebec, Megève, if I'm pronouncing that right, France, Michigan, Helsinki, Finland, Calgary, Alberta, and this is a Division III team,
Yeah.
So
My grandson was going to go. He got offered quite a few Div 3 things.
Yeah.
But he didn't go. He's back here. And last weekend he went to where he played junior in Kindersley and played senior, and they paid him $300 to play. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll recruit a kid from there. Didn't get him, but it's pretty good. So yeah, from everywhere, Roy. They're from everywhere you can imagine. And how a kid, from Helsinki, Finland, is maybe playing junior hockey in Florida, right? Who knows what that's interesting stories when you talk to the kids about their paths and how they got there.
Well, quite a few of the kids, I did the U17 in Salzburg.
Yeah.
And quite a few of those guys wanted to come over in the North American Hockey League or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But we had about 5 kids from Finland on that team. So,
Yeah, and a lot of the European kids will come over and play junior, and if they don't get a Division I offer, they'll just go back home and try to play some level of pro hockey.
yeah. Yeah, it's people from all over the place for sure.
It's definitely not a straight road, I'll say that. There's a lot of curves in that road. Make a good motorcycle road. There's a lot of curves in it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I just wanted to let you know, a while ago in the chat when we were talking about my concern for safety in the game, in 1997, we wrote a script for Hockey Canada because of insurance rates and hitting from behind. And I sent a video to you guys on the chat. It's called Hit Highlights versus the Royals. It's in the 1990s, midget hockey. And I showed at every coaching clinic,
So,
there's a hit from behind, highlight, and then there's a number of good hits. And I ask all the coaches that watch it, what would be a penalty? Now that's back in the 90s. I'm curious to think, what would they call a penalty today? Because it looks like pretty good old fashioned body checking to me back in that day. But today we don't have that kind of body checking going on even. It's stick on puck, a lot more respect in the game. And we used to teach body checking and how to take a check, but it sort of slipped through the cracks. And I'm so worried today about the girls adapting because hitting is a problem. They don't check. They don't know how to check. As Tom mentioned, it's not being taught. And I think, Tom, we're going to have to do some work teaching checking with girls hockey in Calgary. So I just wanted to throw that in while you guys were talking about the game going everywhere else, because I'm really concerned about the safety of the girls game. To the PWHL Pro League, there is good body checking. I think it's just perfect. But the girls have to learn how to do it and be physically mature. So I'll just leave it at that on the body checking. Is
Well-
body checking or hitting a problem out there, Peter, with kids?
Well, there actually is now, I don't know if it's peculiar to USA Hockey or not, but there actually is a 2-minute penalty for checking. At all levels now, there's a 2-minute penalty for checking. And I believe the criteria is, I mean, maybe it used to be called charging because it's, if I don't have the puck and I get checked or I move the puck, and it seems to me, it seems like it's still somewhat of a judgment call. If it wasn't, and I don't know how they decide this part, if it wasn't necessary to check the player,
Yeah.
you can get a 2-minute penalty for having checked the player.
that's pretty hard to start reading people's minds and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the other one, Tom, too, for me, I think still the most ambiguous play call is icing. There's so many games where the puck goes, where all a player had to do was reach out their stick and they could have touched the puck,
I know.
but they just stand there and it goes by. And I would always say to the officials, I don't understand how I said, you're rewarding a lack of effort. Don't they have to make an effort to try to play that puck? Like make a reach if you.
The
Crazy.
NHL is unbelievable. The icings they call.
Yeah.
You know, like it's going right by defenseman. And I said, well, why are you calling that icing?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
they
in
can,
old timers, it's good because the refs don't want to skate that far. And you can almost take a slap shot to the other end and they don't blow icing.
well, yeah, I mean, that way, I mean, they're gonna have the linesman go chase down the puck anyway, right?
Peter, when you say they don't allow checking, they don't allow physical contact. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's checking. It's still kind of odd because it's new. So it's situational. Like if you have the puck, Wally, yes. I mean, I can still check you if you have the puck. If you're along the wall, I can still rub you out, and there can be a shoulder check, legal shoulder check, that kind of thing. It's more seems to be called in the open ice, from what I've been able to see so far.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure it. I'm still trying to figure it out as
I
to.
want, I want to run something by both of you. Tom, if you could just wear your thinking cap now. Imagine you're an official or a coach, and there's a check or a hit that went on the ice. I've always thought it would be quite simple for coaches and referees to agree on judging the intent. Is it the puck or is it to intimidate? So the intent of the check, they have to look at the degree of force and judge the intent. And that seems to simplify, for me anyway, calling checking penalties when it crosses the line of respectful contact.
Well, I think it's all whether the stick's on the ice.
You're right.
If you're playing the puck at the same time, then, it's going to take the intensity of the check away.
Yeah.
And, that's good technique. If you're just playing the body, trying to separate the person from the puck, which was always taught. But, you're only allowed 2 strides. And I watch some of the boys hockey and they're just running around like crazy, taking 5 strides, hitting people, and, if people have good technique, I mean, there's no problem with the checking.
Do you think there's still people taking 5 strides, running people today?
Oh yeah, we'll go watch a Bantam game or something.
Yeah.
I talked to some coaches. They got kids with broken wrists right away. Stuff like that. They're getting rammed. It's there wasn't so much of that in our era, I don't think. That people were just going around, running around, hitting people. I think that's got a lot to do with the helmet and the cage and all that kind of stuff.
And the other thing, Wally, Tom, what I'm able to find is it seems to be more if there's no effort to play the puck is where that penalty tends to be called. So if I'm going stick on puck, it sounds like, and I follow through and get to the body, then it's okay. If I just take the body without any effort to play the puck, then it's not okay.
Well, I'll see it. They'll take that and the puck will be laying there. Don't even bother with the puck. The last thing in their mind was to separate the player from the puck and get the puck. It's just to separate the player from his head.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, years ago. I mean, what did you teach? You taught first player takes the body. Second
guy gets the puck.
Second player gets the puck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was true 2-1-2 forecheck.
Yeah.
Well, I years ago, God, it might have been 20. Ray Bennett, who coaches, he's an assistant coach with Colorado now. He did a big presentation to high-level coaches featuring the St. Louis Blues, and they were having a real successful season. And it was a 3-minute clip, and I'm going to send it to you guys right now on chat. It's called St. Louis Forecheck, Stick on Puck. And that was 11 years ago that he introduced that. And I just thought it was the best thing out. It it's the purpose of getting the puck as aggressively as I've ever seen. And the clip it's just amazing. I'm just sharing it now. So you've got two highlights on there. One's called the hit highlights versus the Royals. And then 11 years ago, NHL clips of the most aggressive forecheck I've ever seen with stick on puck. And I don't know what else you have to do to convince players about how to check properly versus how to maim, which it seems like that there's a danger of that happening. Even today in the game I watched last night, I was really worried in the U18 girls game about, it wasn't what I call intentional hits from behind, but they're not prepared for the hit and they get the stick above the center of gravity and push the shoulder. I'm worried somebody's going to break their neck. So,
Wally, was there a difference, much of a difference in the skill level between those two teams?
oh, very close, very close. The game, the game was 5-1, but it was like a 5-4 game. They're two rival-friendly teams in our association. It's sort of the rivalry match. First,
I think there's at least one forward of mine and two defensemen playing in that game.
yeah. But I typed up a report and shared a respect pyramid with Craig this morning because I'm concerned about the lack of respect. Unintentional. It's just sort of happens. They get caught up in the game. And so are the coaches, because the coach was ejected at the end of the game. And both were yelling at the officials. And yeah, the officials were young and learning, but it just went out of whack for me in my capacity observing the play. I'm just trying to get them to focus on the purpose of the game and accomplish it, and that's try to win the game. But the process of learning how to check, get the puck, and put it in the damn net. And he got a little bit borderline in terms of aggression last night and emotions. Definitely, they lost their emotions at times in the game.
Wally, what was the coach's issue with the officials?
Well, it added up all game. They called a lot of penalties in the first period that really didn't need to be called, but they called them. And then they ignored penalties that should have been called. So they weren't consistent. And that up and down effect of the whole game, I think it added up, affecting the coaches who are good friends, and they're not going at each other, but they're yelling at one coach was yelling at the official. He never got ejected. And the other coach called the official over to talk to him at the end of the game, near the end of the game, and he got ejected. And I think the referee was frustrated, and that's what they do. But my concern wasn't the coaches being ejected. It's the coaches teaching them how to check, how to play people in front of the net, how to turn away and walk away from some situations. And I think checking technique, as Tom said, get that stick on the puck through the hands, through the hips. And if you're going to put pressure, physical pressure, put it on the center of gravity on the hips, not the back or the head.
It sounds like too, Wally, that it sounds like both coaches were pretty, got pretty amped up. And do you think that affected the girls at all too? Because your players kind of react to your mood on the bench.
Well, I don't
follow
think
suit,
any different.
Yeah.
Tom, you coached the arch rival team last week, and
yeah,
I thought both benches were quite good, and I thought the game was, well, your team took some pretty dangerous hits, But like you said, in retrospect, your team checked very well. The other team was more aggressive, and they were finishing checks when in fact you're not supposed to body check.
Well, they're reaching in from behind a lot too.
Yeah. So checking is so important. I think the idea of making sure you're playing the puck and getting the puck and using techniques that help you do that versus just playing aggressively and finishing checks kind of thing, body checks. That's the line in the game. And the professional women's league, they seem to have discovered that physical contact line that the fans love. Like, it really adds to the entertainment value of a game.
Well, they're going to change a bunch of rules. Cassie was talking about any hit to the head, you're out of the game. They're doing some other. She asked me what I changed in the game too, and I suggested two things.
Yeah.
I said there should be an over and back rule on over that 3-on-3. I said it's so boring when the other team goes back and the other, because it used to be really exciting because they'd be trying to score and then someone started going back and regrouping, and there's hardly any action. And the other thing I said is why are there face-offs on offsides? Because the team that went offside can win the face-off. And the other thing, nothing happens on that play. So I said in soccer and in basketball, they got rid of the jump balls. There used to be jump balls all the time.
Yeah.
And now they just take turns on the side. And in soccer, you just back off. So everything, in my opinion, should be just a delayed penalty rule. They're a delayed offside rule. So the ref blows the whistle.
Yeah.
You clear the zone and, just the other team gets the puck and can go.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, like what happens on the neutral zone faceoff? Like an offside faceoff, really nothing, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I suggested. So I don't know if we're getting traction or not.
That's pretty radical. I like it. What do you think, Peter?
Maybe you had to go somewhere.
Now, when you say 3-on-3, Tom, would you explain that a little more for me?
Well, in the overtime, 3-on-3 overtime.
Yeah.
Now teams, they take the puck back way into their end. They'll even pass to their own goalie sometimes, to regroup and to change because to make it more exciting, the 3-on-3, the benches are the far benches. It's the far change, right?
Yeah.
Now they take the puck back into their end. It's just boring as hell. It's not exciting to watch 3-on-3 compared to what it used to be when they started. So there should be an over and back rule, just like basketball, that if you take the puck back in over the center towards your net, the other team gets the puck.
So if you make a change, it's got to be in their half of the ice.
Yeah, well, you can take it out as far as the red line if you really need to change.
Yeah.
But you got to keep possession of the puck.
Yeah.
Instead of skating back into your end, there's a 3-on-3 the other night, and I bet you 2 of the 5 minutes, the other team was going backwards with the puck passing around. There was nothing happening. It was like watching paint dry.
Yeah.
But I think it's really boring myself.
Yeah, we threw around a bunch of ideas of that the other night at the game because it was the same thing. There was an overtime game and it was 3-3 and it was the same thing you're talking about. We're trying to figure out how could you institute a shot clock? Maybe you could do that, but it'd be too hard. The player's backs are to the clock. You can't really see it.
Well, just have an over and back rule. Like
Yeah.
you could go out of your zone if you want. You need to get a change, but you can't cross the red line back in your end, just like basketball has.
Yeah.
And then it'll keep the offense. Because I remember when it first came in, nobody did that. And then a couple of teams started doing it. Then everybody does it.
Yeah, I think like I agree with that. I think you'd get the it would affect the well actually right, it would affect the home team because you got the short change twice. you end up with the long change in overtime because you don't
Yeah,
switch. So your visiting team would actually have the advantage because you'd have to come all the way across where they could just jump right out.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing. But I mean,
Well,
but you're right. They have to do some,
then
try
there's not a
some,
big benefit of going in the neutral zone, right?
right. I mean,
It's better to keep them under pressure.
try something.
I
They're
just
talking.
want to, I
Yes, they,
want to see action. I don't want to see guys skating by themselves back into their own end. I mean, I can go public skating and see that.
no, and you're right. And the reality is like when you watch and you watch an overtime, a 5 minute overtime, and then you'll look and you'll see that, it's showing like 2 to 4 shots that they got. You played
Yeah.
3-on-3 with all that open ice for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You can only get 2 or 3 shots.
Well, nobody drives to the net or anything, eh?
No.
They're all waiting for a breakaway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody drives the net. Nobody I just don't like it. And I just remember how exciting it was until everybody caught on to do this.
Yeah. I mean, they used to be, they just try to create a 2-on-1 on someone, right?
Yeah.
Move the puck, go to the net, create opportunities, but not so much.
Well, I mean, skilled players should be able to do something on 3-on-3.
Yeah, no, there's
Because
no,
there's usually 2 forwards out there too, right?
yeah, there's no question that it should be as slow and plotting, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah, there's less action on 3-on-3 than there is on 5-on-5.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So that's one of the things I suggested to her. It's kind of neat having her on the staff.
Yeah, and it's great that if they start to make that change, because that everything is trickled down, right?
Yeah.
If they're doing it at the pro level, they're trying it at the levels down below. So if they're making rules that work at the pro level, then they will trickle their way down.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's where the model comes from. But they want to really make their game. They're trying to make their game really entertaining to watch. The women,
Right.
and she's I think she's on their board or whatever. So she's
Yeah.
around Calgary a lot more because she used to be gone all the time with the hockey night in Canada and all this stuff and being on the Canadian Hockey Canada board. So now the only thing she does, I think, is a little bit of ESPN, and she's on the executive for that pro women's league, I think, to promote the league.
Yeah, pro sports in general is interesting because I feel like growing up and playing the levels as you need to get hopefully eventually there.
Yeah.
Entertainment is never brought up. Like when you're playing junior hockey, it's about being better than the next player to get yourself into the lineup every night. It's about winning the games. Coach, there's never a discussion about the game being entertaining in any way. And then they finally get to where they want to be, and they just talk about the entertainment factor and keeping the fans around, and it just changes it. It just changes it, I think, sometimes so much for some players.
But I was talking to Mike Johnson, and he said when he was assistant coach in Vancouver, and Brian Burke was a GM, and he said, "You guys can do whatever system you want, but if you do the trap, I'm going to fire you." So, because he didn't want the fans to endure that, watching nothing happen.
Yeah. It's just interesting, like when that whole thing about entertainment and personalities enters the equation, how things can change.
Yeah, and the game is, if players are trying to score, it's an entertaining game to watch.
Right, exactly.
But I'm seeing that at the Flames games now, I'm seeing a lot younger crowd than used to be. I think the young people you know, they're coming to the games now a lot more. It seems to me, just watching the crowd when I walk in, walk out, and you know,
Which is great. I mean, that's what they're looking for, right? Is that longevity with those younger kids getting there, and hopefully someday having a family of their own, perhaps, and then those kids going too.
yeah, because well, that's the thing in the game is if you don't bring the young people, if the young people don't go, it's just going to die.
Yeah, yeah.
And you got to watch the violence. My dad told me lacrosse, pro lacrosse, got so violent in like 1920s and all this kind of stuff, people stopped going. So they ruined it just by that, because lacrosse, you can hit people at any time, right?
Yeah.
Stick and all that.
Yep.
It got so violent, people stopped going. It was just, you know, so they ruined it for themselves.
Yeah, a lot of challenges, and then again, like I said, everything trickles down to the youth. So, and it's harder to, again, you get wrapped up with the winning piece, and you're not teaching some of the simple basics like that, like checking the right way to do it. That it kind of interferes with everything else, and it's unfortunate that it has to be something you even talk about, because you would think with a reasonable human beings, you should be able to fix it by showing a video of the wrong way to do it, or seeing it in a game or in practice and say, don't do that anymore. Yet it continues to feed off itself, and it just keeps happening. I mean, it's I don't know if there's any statistics to say that it's happening any less.
Yeah. Well, the last thing you want to do is go play and get hurt because somebody was stupid.
No, 100%.
When do players get stupid? Are they stupid the moment they step on the ice, or what happens?
Oh, I don't know. Just I think it's a team culture.
Yeah, I agree
Coaching
with
and the
that.
team culture.
I agree with that 100%, because, again, dealing like even at the youth level, seeing just like watching kids in practice, simple things like, I mean, kids will be kids, right? Horsing around and that, but there's a certain point where as a coach, you have to reinforce, you don't do that. We're here to learn, we're here to get better. This is what we do here. And that's culture. Any negative or positive behavior in your life, I don't care if it's in athletics, I don't care if it's at your place of business or if it's in your family, it comes down to culture of what people are taught, and more so what is deemed acceptable, because people will do things that they aren't necessarily taught, but if you accept it, then it's going to continue, it's going to perpetuate.
Yeah.
Well, who's responsible for the culture in your hockey association?
Well, I mean, your coaches have the direct responsibility of what they're doing with their kids. The association needs to have, and most of them do have mission statements and codes of conduct. There's code of conduct that coaches sign and the parents sign every year on how you are supposed to act. So it's out there, but again, it's a question of following through on it. Right. I mean, just like when you're recruiting, when you guys in your years, when you were recruiting players, and every player that's sat with you was motivated, right? Coach, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Don't you worry. But motivation without discipline is absolutely useless. So while you have these things in place, which is the motivation of how we need to act, unless someone actually is there to recognize that and discipline, just like you as a player, I'm going to be great, coach, but yeah, I'm going to go to bed at 1 a.m. and playing video games. And during the season, I'm probably not going to get into the gym because, I get tired a lot. Instead of going to bed every night, at a reasonable hour, getting up. I had a kid that played for me. To this day, is still I think is the best overall hockey player that I've ever coached. Now, when he was playing for me, he was a kid who 6 o'clock in the morning, he'd get up, he'd go to the gym. He could do that because he was in bed by 10 to 11 o'clock every single night. And this was this kid's MO. So, and he was a good college player. He wasn't like a lights out player, but he was a good player, scored some real timely goals for us too. But here's a kid who now he graduates and goes to play minor pro and was over a point a game in minor pro when he was playing. Just because he never changed his habit. He was motivated, but he was also disciplined. So that made a huge difference in the fact that you're motivated. He got everything done he needed to get done because he wanted to really be a hockey player. And so just speaking with him actually the other night, he got a call up to the next league that was higher than that. And that's the highest level that any kid has ever been called up to from, the team I coached those years coaching Division III. But it happened because of his work ethic and his ability to understand motivation and discipline. And it's the same thing with coaches and organizations. You're motivated to have every year, you're motivated to have this fantastic year. We're going to have a great season. We're all going to get along. It's going to be fun. We're going to win games. It's going to be great. That's your motivation. But then you start to have things like maybe like you're talking about today, Wally, where those checks that shouldn't be happening, showing a lack of ability to know how to check. Certainly discipline enters into that. What do the coaches do about that? Do they find a way to fix it? Do they adjust the culture? So it really comes down to being disciplined and that being a thread throughout your organization if you want to be successful, if you want to find your ultimate goals, I think.
It all makes sense, but we're not perfect. We're human.
No, that's it. I mean, you always say, right, strive for perfection and you hopefully find some excellence along the way.
Yeah.
Because you won't be perfect. We get that.
Yeah.
It depends on the culture. So, because I remember switching junior teams, and I went to this team that was just goofy. One guy had walked in the room bragging about how he was 18-0 in his fights. I mean, he'd skate down the ice, jump a guy from behind me, punching him. The guy didn't even know he was in a fight, and it was mental. But every 3 games, there was a bench clearing brawl, and it was like, but then our practices were, our coach and owner would go polish off a bottle of whiskey. Well, we play games of shinny up to 5, and then come out and swear at us and bag skate us for 15 minutes. So it wasn't great coaching.
Yeah, that's we'll call that a negative culture.
How would you describe the culture in your community that you're mentoring, Peter?
I would describe it as a lot of parents who want the best for their kids, who generally like and respect the coaches, who at times need to understand that they're not in the NHL. Allowing the kids to be kids maybe a little bit more and understanding that, like you just said, we're humans and we're not perfect. And that seems, and I don't think that's just this organization. I think that's a thread through athletics because you want a certain result so badly, either for yourself or sometimes for your child, right? Hopefully, that you overemphasize the competitive part of it. Like I want to compete every shift, but when your kid, and I'm talking about like especially at 12 and under, like when they don't like look like they're having a good game, well, let's look at everything. Maybe they shouldn't have played video games till midnight the night before, right? I'm pretty sure that's not on them to just go to bed. Somebody else is supposed to handle that, and maybe when they didn't want to eat their dinner, maybe they shouldn't have had 2 candy bars instead, So I think there's a lot of lessons, and it's pretty interesting. I will say that, having gone through it with my own children, and like I say, at the prep level, at the university level, all levels really, other than anything really major or pro, that it's pretty interesting watching it. It's kind of like the watching the same movie year after year, and it changes a little bit, but not all that much.
The word habits seems to be really, really important. And you've got good habits and bad habits, and we try to raise our kids to develop good habits, and we demonstrate them sometimes and not all the time, but it's sort of the vicious cycle. What are some good life habits that sports teach you from your experience? What have sports taught you? What are they teaching your kids and your minor hockey kids and your parents?
I think obviously teamwork, understanding that you're going to be with a group of people who don't necessarily think the same way you do and act the same way you do. However, you need to find a way to come together to achieve the same goal. So people from different backgrounds, right? Kids raised different ways, but we need to find a way to come together to do that, to get that ultimate goal done. Accountability when there's a mistake, right? You can't yell at your teammate, "I was open," because perhaps from that teammate standpoint, you weren't. There was no lane. Again, maybe I was on the other side of that player, but there was no way to get me the puck. So I think accountability, and then supporting players, understanding that when players have bad days or bad games, a goalie lets in a bad game, that you have to have some compassion. So there's so many great life lessons, I think, from athletics in general. Hockey, I think, is always interesting because it can change on a dime. From things are going great, again, like that game the other night. We're up 3-0 going in the third period. Life is beautiful. How do we lose 4-3? Right. So dealing with all those issues and that, I think, really helps you. Again, some of the best employee type situations that I've heard of and been involved in, where if the kids played a decent, highly level of athletics, they generally made very good employees too, because they understood about getting a job done, like what it takes, group, get the job done, figure it out. So that's kind of my thoughts on at least many of the things that it brings.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Tom, I'm going to get more specific to on ice. What are some habits that like are absolutely essential in practice?
Well, I think starting off is you have to face the puck. You have to face the puck, because if you don't, there's seconds that you don't even know what's going on there. And that's a critical one. Stick on the ice, and then controlling your skating according to the situation. Every situation has different habits in it. Like Cassie yesterday or Tuesday was telling the wingers to go a little wider when they're driving to the net. Don't just go right by the puck carrier, so they're easy to stop a 2-on-1 if both players are side by side almost. Things like that work a lot better if you do them. Like the 2-on-1 habits, I make them recite the poem before we did the 2-on-1. One high, one low, one fast, one slow. So they're not just parallel or like this or this. So yeah, every situation has habits in it. Like today, I've got one particular D, but all the D, the puck focus on one-on-ones. So we'll do one-on-ones with no stick, just so that they're staying D side the whole time. So that's a huge habit. So
How about, is effort a habit, or is it just natural, or do all players have the same degree of effort, or that sense of urgency and extra effort? It's really important in elite sports, and
well, that's a separator, right?
yeah,
I mean, if someone's got a lot of skill, like I remember a couple of years ago, the banquet for the girls hockey Calgary, and this bantam girl, the coach gave her MVP, hardest worker. She gave all the awards to this one girl, and she was a floater. She was great. She was big, and she never advanced anywhere in the game because she didn't give effort, and she had all the skills in the world. So I really think that as you move along, it's the one that can do, gives effort, and when you give effort, you have to learn how to do things at full speed, right? Because you're giving it out there, you're not floating around. So it's about grit. Grit is the most important thing in your life, right?
yeah.
Same with hockey.
Now, Tom, a coach that did that, how is that possible? Because you have people around you coach with. Do they not dare speak up, or was it a dictatorship?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm thinking somebody close to the team, one of the staff members, might have questioned one player getting all the awards.
Oh, that wasn't my team. That was at the banquet, and I couldn't believe that this girl got every award. There were some people saying, "What the heck?
Yeah,
Was there no other team players on this team?"
yeah.
I've never seen that before. But I would guess during the season she didn't miss too many shifts.
So,
I'm sure she was double shifting. But I remember seeing her thinking, it's not really a player because she doesn't compete hard.
well, Tom, you described the practices. What are some habits coaches can control and develop in games for their players?
Well, whatever style you're playing, whatever forecheck you're using, everybody has to do it. And if one person doesn't do it, then it doesn't work. Like, every once in a while, like we pinch on a wide rim all the time. But I've got a problem with that with one particular defense just stands there. And so that's something, it doesn't work unless everybody does it, right? So something you have to coach and talk to a player about and explain and all this sort of thing.
You got to play your system, eh?
Yeah, well, everybody's got to play the same way.
Yeah.
Everybody's out there, and that transfers to life beyond, right?
Yeah.
If you're not going to buy into your company's philosophy, is probably not a good company. They're probably not going to keep you around too long unless you're really good.
Yeah.
The one thing is, my kind of rule in life is, if you're going to do something different than the coach says, it better work. So Willie Mays used a basket catch. It's the only player in baseball that's ever used a basket catch. Caught the ball down here. Nobody else did. But you couldn't complain to him and say, Willie, you got to catch it up here, because he was the best outfielder in baseball. So if you're going to do something different, it better work. You know, and that's kind of you can't argue with someone that does something that it works.
What about shift length, Tom? Is that not a habit that coaches can control, develop?
Well, what I try to do is we have a lot of kind of scrimmages in our practice, and I'll blow the whistle to some of them, and it's always around 40 seconds. So they get the feel of how long a shift is, because there's nothing worse. Somebody takes long shifts, especially the winger on the far side. It's hard to get them off. And then the person changing behind him doesn't get any ice time, right? They get out there for 20 seconds, there's a face off, and the coach changes the line. So it's a selfish thing to do too. You know?
How do you address it?
So you talk to the player, and if they don't adjust, then the only thing a coach has is ice time.
Yeah.
But usually, I will bench someone if they won't come off the ice, but I haven't had to do that this year.
Have you in the past?
Yeah, sometimes you have to. Sometimes, yeah, you have to do something when someone's not buying into what you're, if they're not buying what you're selling, you have to do something about it.
Yeah.
But there, you talk to people beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah, you establish it's sort of like the rules before the game, what you expect and how you follow up if they don't do them. And that's an art. And a number of coaches, they actually develop bad habits. They let kids stay out too long. They double shift their best players. And those players don't learn to be team players, and they are hurting the team. So I think the idea of habits at practice carry over into games, and the games are more, I think I call it behavioral coaching, making sure they toe the line, they behave, they work hard, show respect and effort for one another. And that's ideal. And we're not perfect, but I am absolutely impressed with how hard the effort is in the league you're coaching and in all the leagues at the different levels. I think it's pretty amazing hockey, and I don't know whether it's because I've just getting to watch now and enjoy the games, not really be involved in them. But what do you think over the past few years compared to when you coached years ago? Is it changed, improved, or?
No, I don't think it's changed. I think the kids get a lot more outside training now. But I know I've always had kids that work really hard, and if they get culled if they don't, right? They don't make, if you're coaching a high level team, they don't get on those teams.
Yeah.
And if you get to pick the team, you don't pick those kids.
Yeah.
So,
Peter, I don't know what they do out there when they pick teams. Do they have a committee pick them and then assign the coaches, or do they have the coaches draft them and pick their players, or what happens out there?
Well, I think every organization has their own model. The organization that I work with, what they do is they get the coaches to do an evaluation of each of the kids at the end of the season. Then they bring in a group of independent evaluators who will then select the strongest players if you're on the top team, and then depending on how many teams you have, you might have two, generally have two at a level. Excuse me, sometimes you have three, but generally you have two. So they'll select based on the tryouts who looks to be the strongest players for the top team, and then the next group for that second team. They'll give that to the organization. Then the organization and their coaches will decide ultimately who they want to choose. And some of it will depend too on, you may have a player that's a really skilled player, but doesn't listen well, is disruptive, sometimes disrespectful. So that top team coach may say that kid's not going to fit in my culture. That kid's going to be better served where he can have success at the team below, not trying to prove themselves and show everyone how good they are, because naturally they will have some success. So we can work on those other things that maybe that kid needs to work on. So the coaches have say in who is picked. The evaluators give the information. Some organizations, because I'll do this with an organization I work with, and we'll maybe work with 6 to 8 different youth organizations in the state. And some will have categories. Some will have stick skills, skating skills. They'll have hockey IQ, shooting, passing, those kinds of things. And you rank the kids, and they'll use that. And some of them get, I guess, pretty sophisticated. They'll take those, they'll put them into their computer programs that they have, their formula, and based on that, they'll come out with those numbers. And then again, have the human aspect of it too. Like, all right, well, this kid is a pretty good player, but they're never at practice. They only show up for games. So how do you want to deal with that? So they all have somewhat similar with their own little tweaks, but they do take into consideration the human factor, if you will, too.
Tom, when you drafted your teams over the years, and your son, he has a pretty detailed formula.
Yeah.
And I know your assistant coaches, and they spend a lot of time on details, looking at players more than you and me, I think.
Oh, we met after every ice time on the tryouts, right?
Yeah.
We'd meet and talk about the different players and kind of rank them. So we had but it wasn't just him, but he's more meticulous than most. And yeah, that it's such an important time because you gotta, but it was really this year, because you couldn't protect anybody. We ended up with one player from last year. The other teams ended up with all our returning players.
Tom, this year when you drafted, you obviously drafted in rank order. Are there players that have exceeded your expectations, that have improved so much that they actually surprised you?
Oh yeah. I mean, our number 11, she's our most effective player right now. We didn't take her till about the 5th forward. But last year, Lazari taken about 7th forward.
Yeah.
He led the league in scoring. So tryouts are a different animal too, right? There's no structure.
Yeah.
And some players look really good in tryouts. But, once there's structure and all this kind of stuff, they don't look very good. So that's always, if you don't know the players,
Yeah.
the first time you're seeing them, of course, the ones that grab the puck and go end to end and fly all over the place, catch everybody's eye. But it's an imperfect science, that's for sure.
This year, Peter, I was watching the 11 and 12-year-olds, U13, and being a former scout, I kept a score on their skills, another one on their hockey IQ, And the third one on their intangibles, the character, work ethic, commitment, coachability, effort kind of thing. And at the end of the day, everybody drafted. I didn't draft. I just watched. And every one of the teams drafted people I never even ranked. And I'm watching those players play today that I had and are on no rank that were picked in the bottom third, but now might be in the middle or the top third. So how much they can mature, change, grow if they haven't played elite hockey before is amazing. And I'm wondering how long does this learning curve, improvement curve go on? Because Peter, I'm sure you've had stories of older athletes, even coming to university, that suddenly matured physically and mentally to perform better than ever.
Yeah, I don't think there's an easy answer to that one. I don't think you can say that, by this age, if you're not at a certain skill level, you're all done, right? I mean, if you go way back, I think Kevin Stevens, right, played for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think the story with him was he started playing when he was 15 years old, and he ended up in the NHL. So you can have that kind of a gifted athlete that, for sure. I think it's like anything else. I think it's the kids that stay with it the longest, that have the opportunities, because again, like Tom mentioned, about today, everybody's got a skills coach, a skating coach. If you're able to do that, you're going to probably maximize your opportunity. You won't, there's never a guarantee, but you'll probably maximize your opportunity. And then again, I really think it comes down to that kid's culture. I mean, what they are willing to do as far as sacrifice, work ethic, and such to get to where they want to go. I mean, we've all coached players that are similar to what you're talking about there, Wally, who, you know what, this kid just doesn't go away. They just keep working and working, and eventually they get to a point because they have that kind of work ethic. That boy that I mentioned, who I think he's probably the best hockey player I've ever coached. And it was 100% because of his commitment to the game and the sacrifices that he was willing to make in order to achieve those.
Tom, I'm thinking of the NHL. How Pavel Datsyuk, do you remember when he was drafted, what level? And then all of a sudden he moved up and became a superstar.
Well, Detroit would draft all these Europeans that nobody knew anything about, right?
Yeah.
And he was just super amazing. He's quite the player. It's fun watching. Jim was showing one of our players his highlights.
Yeah.
A player that's having trouble putting the puck in the net on shootouts and stuff.
Yeah.
So he was showing her Datsyuk in that one, when he goes backwards and the goalie's sprawling, he flips it up in the air and, just goes in a little loop over top of the goalie.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
So I interpreted Datsyuk to be a late mature, what you're saying, and I agree with you. There's a lot of European players we never knew about that were that good. And somehow
Detroit brought in all those guys that, well, first of all, the Russians couldn't get here.
Yeah.
Right. And they just had all those guys on the line. They knew what they were doing. I'm sure Datsyuk was a star in Russia.
Yeah.
But he was pretty amazing, that's for sure.
Well, there's one player with the Calgary Flames that I thought, boy, did they make a mistake. And Tom, you know who I'm talking about. He plays goal. And Peter, this guy was small. He was really good at every level he played at, the best starting goalie at the Major Junior League and the American League. And the few games that I saw him play, which actually was quite a few, I thought he was just too small, wasn't reacting, wasn't stopping pucks. But Tom, how would you describe him right now? It's almost like he's the talk of the NHL.
Well, he's let in 2 goals in the last 3 games. He was not only the all-star goalie in the American League,
Yeah,
he was the MVP of the whole league. You know, like he is so controlled and reads the game so well. He's not diving all over because he kind of anticipates the game so well.
yeah,
And he's not that small. He's 6 foot tall.
yeah,
I mean, that used to be a big goalie,
yeah,
but now they're all 6'20".
Yeah.
So, but he doesn't use the butterfly as a security blanket. I just hope the puck hits him. He's in the play all the time. Like he's pretty darn amazing, I think.
Yeah, Wally, I did some quick research for you. Pavel Datsyuk was a 6th-round draft pick, picked 171st overall, and the scouting report on him was he was a cerebral tactician, dangler, and two-way center.
Well, he should have been drafted higher, I think, by somebody.
Yeah, I would say in hindsight, everybody looking at that is probably talked to their scouting staff and said, why?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that intrigues me, Peter, over the years, and I don't know how you access that stat and feedback, but there's been so many 1st-round draft picks that just haven't done it. Now, one that seems to have matured right now with New York, is that Lafreniere?
Yeah, Lafreniere, right? He's a Lafreniere?
Yes.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah. Wally, so this is something called Elite Prospects.
Yeah.
It's called Elite you put in eliteprospects.com, all one,
Yeah.
and you can research anyone almost that ever played. I mean, I think it goes back to a certain point, but
Well, last night at this banquet, I'm at the back and I'm standing beside Craig Conroy, and there's this Jason Krylak beside me, and he led all scorers in major junior hockey in Canada. Never went to a camp, but 81 goals, 81 assists. And I said, Craig, here's a draft choice. Here's a draft choice for you, 81 goals. And, you know, he finally said, well, what was their knock on you? And they didn't think he could skate. All he could do is get goals and assists. And nowadays what they do, you know, they have a skating coach and they have guys working on skating. Eh? I mean, This guy, he was a 1-second player because he got 81 assists too. Like he knew where everybody was. He's a straight A student. And his shot was absolutely unstoppable, but an inch under the crossbar. And he could shoot, you know, terrible passes. Like he got that shot on net all the time. And, you know, and in that was in the 90s, and they just didn't do anything with the players, because I know one of Calgary's players right now, Zari, he wasn't a very good skater, and he's been working with a skating coach all summer. The last 2 years now, he's a pretty good skater. You know, he's a dangler too. But yeah, 81 goals, and you don't even go to NHL camp. You lead the whole country.
yeah, well, and that was, you know, that was a time where they didn't have those, like you said, they didn't have the skating coaches really. And hey, if you can't, if there were so many players out there, you know what, I can't find somebody with 81 goals but I can find a 60 goal scorer who can skate. That's a better risk.
Yeah. Well, if they, like Lanny McDonald scored 77 goals, I think. standing on the dot on the, and one time the puck, he could score, he could shoot as well as landing at any point. I used to love just watching him in practice. I'd watch him go. I bet you he scored 80% of the shots he took in practice. Like, it was amazing. Other guys would go and hit the glass, and the goalie would stop it. He'd go in and the puck was in the net. He just could do it. I've never been around. I guess Danny Heatley was the closest I saw to that, the guy that put the puck in all the time. But it's pretty amazing when someone can do that.
Absolutely.
Peter,
So-
did you watch Coronado play?
I did not. I
Because
did not.
apparently he sort of turned the corner, Tom, eh?
Yeah, well, they had him doing skating too.
Yeah.
And they were saying the other day he was a defenseman when he was in youth hockey. But anyways, yeah, now he's like he really showed Bedard up in an overtime. They had their goalie pulled.
Yeah.
And a puck was dumped down the ice, just maybe to the top of the circle in Chicago's end.
Yeah.
And him and Bedard were racing for the puck, and he just left him in his dust. But,
He's becoming a first line winger now.
he can shoot the puck.
Yeah.
He's a good player.
Yeah. The Calgary Flames, Peter, they're an interesting team. They're well under their cap. They haven't traded or tried to trade for draft picks. And I don't know what the record is. Do they have 10 wins yet, Tom?
They're 10-6-3.
Yeah. So they've
And
exceeded
they
it.
can't score.
Yeah, they've got their top scorer is a defenseman, and he's 136th, I think, in the league in scoring. Rasmussen.
Fellas,
That's
I have to
Anderson.
run here. I got a call I gotta take pretty soon here. It was a good session. It was always good to catch up with you guys.
Peter, thanks for coming
Great
on.
seeing you, Peter.
Yeah, and Tom, you can keep the snow up there. That's okay.
Okay.
We were really lucky. Like, it held off till mid-November. The 18th, we got our first snow because
All right.
makes the winter a little shorter.
True story. True story. All right, you guys have a great week.
You
You
take
too.
care, Peter. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye-bye.
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 So, Tom, what's your schedule this week? When's practice?
We have a practice tonight. So the one girl missed 2 of the last 3 practices. I planned the whole last practice for her.
Yeah.
So I have to put a few things in there, but we have to work. Jim can be there tonight, so we're going to work on the power play too. And I'm going to do. I'll take the number 1 power play first and do the Bob Johnson thing while Jim does the second power play.
Yeah.
Like, now everybody's rotated into it. Everybody's got to play power play. And then I'll flip so he can go over with the second group and have them, that forces them to move the puck a little quicker when they got that pressure.
Yeah.
So we'll do that, and gonna do breakout stuff, and then gonna do the one-on-one with no stick. Get the players focused on staying in the player's way. Don't let them get to the net.
That seems to have paid off for you, eh?
Well, yeah, it's a great thing. Even like, I know at St. Women we did 3-on-3 with no stick, and it was good.
No.
But it just get a lot more practice there. But the no stick, because I find when they got the stick upside down, they're still going for the puck with the upside down stick.
Yeah.
So it forces them to stay D side, and then they can go from there.
It's position.
Yeah, and you don't want to have a big gap on that either. You're really hurting, right?
Yeah.
So I just think it's a good thing to do. We did it earlier in the year.
Yeah.
2 games ago, she was just swimming on a few one-on-ones, looking at the puck. Player fake outside, and she was fading towards the boards. Yeah, it was just, yeah. So she kind of lost the idea.
Tom, I want to share with you last night's game. Both teams did something exceptionally that I think is worth considering. In the offensive zone, Ben's team had low zone possession behind the goal line, and they found the player in the slot or the D open at the top of the circles.
Yeah.
So I've never seen the D play up when the team had possession below the goal line and received passes. They probably had 6 scoring chances, the D, from low zone offense. Normally it's low to high and they're at the blue line.
Yeah.
But this was low to ring at, and they were snapping shots.
Yeah, well, we work on that. We work on that going east to west behind the net and maybe back again. And F3 mirroring, but the D is up a little bit to get that. You can jump up and get that pass. But we did the last practice, and I'm going to do it but I'm going to make it 3-on-2, is that a 2-on-1, and then on the whistle, the players that went, new 2-on-1 starts, but the forwards have to back check and the D join.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it a 3-on-2 today. So we got 4 lines, and make it a 3-on-2 because I have 7 defense. So get Cassie or one of them to play defense.
Yeah.
And do that. That's a good one to get the D to join the play too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need more practice time, but there's no ice, I guess.
I wonder if you could find any.
Well, we did once when we had Friday and a Sunday game.
Yeah.
But they're busy every night.
Yeah.
Like on Monday night, they wrap gifts for some senior or something. They met. Tuesday, we had practice. Last night, they had dry land and shooting.
Yeah.
Tonight, we have a practice. We play Red Deer on Friday. Nothing Saturday. And then we play Okotoks on Sunday. So they don't really have a whole lot of extra time.
Yeah. Well, Tom, look, I'm hoping to see another one of your games. It's fun to watch. The hockey's really good, and keep giving her, and we'll stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, it'll be interesting.